Well, hello, hello. We're back again for another Other Ink Thursday, and I'm so pleased to be bringing you this conversation with Pete Petrusha, the creative director of Imagining Games and the Midwest sales associate for
Yeah.
IPR, that's Indie Press Revolution. Pete, hey, welcome.
How's it going? It's cool that I'm on one of these. I love Other Ink too. That's it's like a very easy reach for name for you guys, but that's perfect.
Yeah, it,
Yeah.
it was it was workshopped for a few minutes, and
Okay.
then
Well,
then we were like, obviously, because I started with like interviewing people that I was working with, like. I think the first ones that I did were like with back in we did Psychic Kids, and it's like, oh, talk to the artist, talk to the other artist,
yeah.
talk to the writer, and talk to the layout artist, and everybody had their little say, and it's like wet ink Wednesday. You got to love the alliteration. And then I was like, but what if I talk to other people who I'm not working with like right
Yeah.
now? And then it's like, okay, well, we'll do something. We'll do other ink. That's
Yeah.
who else's ink can we talk about? So,
I can imagine it's one of those easy names though too. You could have workshopped like 100 and then been like, I don't know, Other Ink has a ring to it and come back to
yeah,
it.
it's got sort of a the words go together from one sound to the
I
next
can
in a
kind
way
of
that sounds
picture
all
the
right.
logo. Yeah, like Other.
Uh yeah, the well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, the
I know, right?
yeah, I've talked to you before. I've done
Yeah.
panels that you've been a part of.
Mhm.
I've talked to you obviously at cons for years.
Yeah.
But yeah,
We
I
go to a
don't think
lot of
I've
shows. Both of
you
us.
go to a
Yeah.
lot of shows. You go to a lot of
Yeah.
shows, Pete. You're just back from C2E2, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah. This weekend was crazy, right? Because like everyone was somewhere. That was so nuts.
Except me, I
Yeah.
was in my house being
The
sad.
PAX East, Adepticon. I mean, you see, I'm pretty
Yeah.
close to Chicago, so Adepticon's pretty big out here for miniatures and wargaming. That's like
Yeah.
3 to 5 thousand people or something. And the C2E2, obviously like 90,000 people or whatever. And
Yeah.
but they're turnstile. That's some of these shows you got like San Diego Comic Con stuff. They talk about 250, 300,000 people, but they mean the whole week, like the week
Yeah.
show. Like we go to Gen Con, we mean like 100, and if we did that, it'd be like 175,000. But we count, we're talking like because our people are there the whole weekend, like
Mostly.
these Comic
Yeah.
Cons, they come on Saturday, and then a lot of those people are here Friday or Sunday. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's different. Gosh, that's a whole other
I'm curious
because
about
see
PAX East. I saw some people really raving about how good it was, and I know we've
I
talked about it in the past. I have so many people who are like, you got to go, and then I've had people who've been like, yeah, it's okay. So you're
I
trying to
mean
figure out where you would be.
uh, last year we went because we
Yeah.
heard from Limithron and
Hmm.
from Free League and from Ninth Level that it was good, it was worth going. And so we went, and last year was a down year for everybody. So like
Okay, it was for
our
everybody.
basically last year
Yeah.
was down for everybody. So for us, it was like not worth going back if that's how it was always going to be. But then
Yeah.
everybody who was there this year was like, oh, record sales this
Either
year.
this
It's
year's
like,
great. Yeah.
well, okay, So good if you were there, great. But then yeah, and the last weekend was the same way because there was Gary Con was like the
Yeah.
weekend before. It was
A
like
lot of people saying, hey, I was just a Gary Con. Yep.
yeah, yeah. So
And
this
some of them they drove straight to PAX East. I
well,
think Brian from Vast Grim, yeah, he just drove
hmm.
straight to PAX East. Yeah.
Yeah, he
It's
did.
a heck of a drive.
He had a that he yeah, he was I saw his social media posts of his journey back home too. It's like he just drove straight back home too. It's like what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Uh anyway,
Nobody
we're
beats
not here.
Jordan though. Nobody beats Jordan.
Oh my gosh,
Like,
Jordan Duby,
yeah,
he is I
he's
agree
out of
with you.
Maine now, but when he was in Maine, I was like, what are you doing? How do you go back 14 hours from everything? Like you live up in the corner of the country. There's no way in and out very easily. And he's going to all these Midwest shows. He's just
Yeah,
driving week to
it's
week.
I guess he's got nothing else to do except like come up with
Yeah.
weird games and drive to cons. Like
I like to think
he's
you and I've hustled. Like we put in our time and our years, but then I see Jordan and he makes me go, I don't know if I could have done it. Like
yeah,
just
I
because I
agree.
see, yeah,
I
it's
agree. Like
crazy.
I don't know how old he is. He seems like he's
Yeah.
about 15 years younger than I am, which I don't know if that's true, but he certainly has the energy of somebody who's 15 years younger than I am.
Yeah.
Uh, anyway, Pete, we're not here to talk about like go
Yeah.
to cons, but it is kind of like part of the whole. We'll come back to cons. We'll come back to the
Sure.
cons in the middle
Yeah.
part of the interview because like I was telling you before we started recording, like I want to talk about like your company and like you're kind of at
Yeah.
this. I mean, I don't want to call it like a capstone, but it's like you're at like a high point. Like you've got the big game you've been working on for years in Chew,
Yeah.
and then it's out finally, and also nominated for one of the industry awards. And so, like,
Yeah.
congratulations on your Origins Award
Thanks.
nomination.
Yeah.
And it's sort of
It's a
like,
cool one. I feel like not everyone gets this one. So like
oh
not
yeah,
I but
there's only like 20 of them instead of like, instead of like 50 categories.
yeah, and
So
there's only two RPG ones. Like it's
yeah,
like best RPG or like supplement.
yeah.
But there's 10 finalists, I think, in every category. So, but yeah, like especially for this case, like choose up there with like Cosmere and like Pathfinder Second Edition
Or
and Daggerheart.
Daggerheart, and
You know,
yeah,
so like
very
it's like
popular.
big elbows. Yeah, like
Yeah, yeah.
I gotta hold them off. Like, give me some space, guys. You know?
But I mean, this is where I want to get to is like, I hope
Yeah,
it feels good to have like put literally years of work into a product,
yeah,
and then to be have it be like named one of the 10 best games that came
yeah.
out this year, and along with all these ones that we've just been naming. But I don't want to start there. It's where we're going to go, but I want to start back at the beginning, like years ago. I mean, even before Dream Chaser, which I do want to ask about, but like, like, have you always been an RPG
You want a
person?
little giddy laugh? You just bring up Dream Chaser, right? Because that's the beginning, that's the baby, right? That's
I
the one
know,
that
I know.
all the formative stories are like that journey that you try to remember. Like it sucked, but it was beautiful, and then you look back on it now and you can kind of appreciate it more. But it was like,
It's your
the
first
young
game that
days,
you
yeah.
published,
Yep.
right? And it is a kind of a unusual RPG. Still remains sort of aren't that many that are based on this sort of. It's not formalist, but it's very loose, and
Sure.
you get it's Dream Chaser. You set out your dream as
Yeah.
the table, and it's sort of
Thank you for
these.
not slapping Universal on top. It's just so quickly like it's another Universal game, and it is, but it isn't. And I
Yeah.
appreciate that you're pulling that off really well for me.
Well,
So
it is specific in that it is
yeah,
meant to be a one shot, and it has this sort of like very invitation to the players to like come
yeah,
up with, what story do you want to tell? And okay, then
yeah,
what would we need to do that? Let's build up a little ramp for ourselves, and then go through those
yeah.
hoops, or
Yep.
build, we build our own obstacle course, and then we run it, and so that is a very specific experience. And there are a
Yeah.
few games that do similar
Oh
things, but
yeah. Hmm.
but what I want to ask is like, it would be surprising if that's your like, if completely out of the gate you just came up with that game first, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you have to have almost, I feel like you have to have known what an
Oh,
RPG
interesting. Yeah.
is
Yeah.
before you can
Yeah.
make that game, because
Of
that game is
course.
sort of
Yeah.
supposed to be simplifying the whole campaign process down. So what is the first games for you? Where did you start with games? Like, what is your
Yeah.
first like one that you learned what an RPG was with?
Sure. So really it's funny because it's a funny story. It's Shadowrun Second Edition. And
Okay.
for people who know me, they've heard this story. Like, so I'll keep it short. Is like I was like a 12-year-old in like a model store, like Hobbytown USA, and they had three RPGs on little black standy racks, right, at the bottom shelf in some little, some part of the back of the store. And it was like Dungeons and Dragons. Probably Vampire. I don't remember what the other one was in Shadowrun. And I just was looking at that. This cover's got this like black sort of wire grid around the edges, and there's like an elf chick with a mohawk, and she's got a cord plug from the side of her head into like what looks like an arcade machine, but it's like an ATM. Some gay people would drive by, and a couple people who are like covering for her, but I just never seen anything like it. I think I'd seen like some brief little bits of like anime, like on TV occasionally, where they like hide it late night or early morning or weird times. You might get something, but cyberpunk stuff was like, especially as a kid, like I just never really saw it before. So that's just kind of like I would get that book and for years and years and years, like not know what an RPG was. And I would like flip through this book. And then
Mhm.
one day, gosh, because like eighth grade, so like 3 or 4 grades later, I'm in a study hall with a future supplement of that game, because the Denver box set. And I just have it in study hall that I brought to school for something to do during study hall. And the kid next to me knew Riffs. And they were like actually giving me a hard time about some bullshit. And then, but like we're calling me Denver and whatever. And I didn't know what he was talking about because I really had no idea what a role playing game was. And him and his friend were like making their characters. And like, I made a vampire that can do this. And they made a dragon. We fight. And, my vampire can beat your dragon. No, it can't, because it's all point by everything with Rifts, right? So you actually, with Brandon, you probably know, right? All
Well,
the
yeah, I was like, I don't
Palladium
think
stuff.
Rifts is point by really, but like,
Oh,
yeah,
was it? Okay. So they were
it's
doing
got a
that.
like 8 stats. You roll them, your stats are based on the
Maybe it was
beats.
just Palladium, and I've been calling it Rifts forever. It may have just been Palladium. Yeah, because like
I
just
mean,
the series of books.
it's all the same system. They all use the same
Yeah,
system. It's the
yeah, because
megaversal
you're right. I
system.
mean, Rifts in my head is always like the Portal game, but yeah. So that would just kind of get me there. Magic the Gathering would get me into game stores, and then when I was in high school, I would sit there sometimes waiting for people to play Magic the Gathering with, and we'd have RPGs going at like the table next to me. And they'd over
So
time occasionally be like, "Hey, the fighter had to leave. Can you play? Hey, can you grab this character?" The
is this
mid
like
game,
before
right?
school starts in like the morning
After school.
after
Yeah, so
school?
this is
Okay.
like 5, 6 p.m. I had it was real luxury. Like I was what we call a game store rat. Like every day, in high school, almost every day, like clockwork, we would walk the 1 mile that wasn't far from my house, but through like a downtown, there was the sidewalks, and like it was like, but it was about a mile from school to the game store. And then we'd stay there till like 8 p.m. and then go home.
Wow.
So it was pretty cool because yeah, I spent years that shop really stopped sometime like my sophomore year, so I can't say like years and years. But yeah, there's like a year and
But
a half there
but
to
like
two
4 years when
years.
you're like a preteen is a lot of
Oh yeah,
time,
yeah.
or an
So there's
early
a couple
teen.
years where I was like freshman, sophomore, and I spent almost all my days, 6 days a week at the game store, and
So, so did
that
you
led
ever
to play
actually?
Deadlands and
Okay.
The Legend of the Five Rings, and
Well, yeah, those are
uh,
all the
all my
all.
friends became GMs because we all picked a day, and I used to run D&D on a Fantastic Wednesday was my day, and somebody had Supersonic Tuesday, and because it just
Ah,
we would run like all-nighters sometimes for like overnight events, and
yeah.
yeah, it just became a thing, and it's cool because you always had players. And if anything, we had one of those environments where like more too many people wanted to run games. But it did lead to like we played Mutant Chronicles. And, I played like a dozen, 15 games, something like different RPGs like my freshman, sophomore year. And that's pretty cool because
That's
not everyone gets that option, right? Like
no,
it was
no.
I put out like, yeah,
That's great. That
yeah,
is atypical. Like
yeah.
most of the time, it is like, oh, I played one or two
And
games.
there's just D&D going on in my game store. And, like I wish I could
Right.
find a game at something else. But instead, yeah, we were like, we had groups, we had more than enough players, and they were every day of the week, if
Yeah.
almost. And when they
But
weren't, and then of course we usually could be like, "Hey, Dad, can everybody come over?" And then like we go to somebody's house a couple of those nights and keep playing. Yeah,
wow.
it was cool. And then yeah, so that gives me a great foundation, right? And then
Well,
like
yeah,
20
absolutely.
years after that, I'm 30 something, and I start looking at my life and go, man, games were so formulaic in my life, like role playing games. And before I was like, well, you can't make any money. And now I'm just like, I want to do something that I think I should do, like something that was
Yeah.
important to me, I should give back to. And that kind of gets me back in RPGs and, reading
Yeah.
everything, playing everything, and then leading to making games. So,
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you remember? Like, was there, especially if, I mean, you could talk about it kind of like we could keep the story moving forward here. Like, is it
yeah.
when you say you got back into it, like, was there one game that was
Oh, yeah, that's a good
like
call.
that was like, oh, this is a game, like because I like to know like because when you write a game, like you put your
Yeah.
name on it, right? But like
Yeah.
when you're younger, like games just kind of exist, and like it was partly because credits weren't really worked out the way that they are now. Like
Yeah.
like who wrote video games, like that's not really
Yeah.
they just weren't put in there. There's lots of credits that were like hidden or missing from games when we were coming up. But like I think that's gone away in the more modern, especially in the indie scene. Like people put their names on the covers of the books and it's there, and so So like when you came back, was it like, oh, this game is by this person, and so is this game, and I liked both of them. So like, what else did this person do? Was there did that happen at all, or was there something that you
No.
followed?
I wish I could give us some love as game designers, but no. Yeah, that didn't matter. Excuse me. I think maybe, brands probably still matter to some degree. Because like I always kept dibs on like who had Shadowrun, because Shadowrun moved around a few times. But D&D like had pretty much stayed, right? Had been with Wizards, so um I don't think any of those jump out at me. But I basically what got me back was, I mean, we would play like once in a while because a lot of my core friends out of high school then were people who gamed every day. So it was so ingrained in like a lot of my friends that I would have like almost lifelong, but
Yeah.
most of those friendships, I mean, I still talk to a bunch of them a little bit, but it's so brief in here and there now. But like, through my 20s and 30s, we still saw each other pretty regularly. So Even if it was like once a month, we still like those contacts were regular enough that you just drop by someone's house and see each other. So that would keep things of like, hey, we should play this, or like, hey, you go to your friend's house, you see you're walking around aimlessly because you're just hanging out. You look at their shelves and remember when we did this, and so there's been a couple like D&D games, or like maybe somebody brought back Vampire for like a one to. We played a lot of like one shots that would lead to like 3 to 5, and they fall apart or something.
Mhm.
So a lot of it was D&D, but we always were homebrew people. So a lot in the modern spirit that I don't know if I ever really ran many modules like ever until like really got closer to being a designer. Then I would like had needed to know how they worked better and like what I liked and what I didn't like. But we always just like making up our own worlds and our own
Yeah.
storylines and our own things. So we while we still played a lot of D&D, even when I came back like in my late 20s and 30s a little more. Like it was just that wasn't the cool part. But I did have friends that they were always tinkering on their own game systems too. So I think um,
Yeah, I think
in
as
some
soon
ways,
as you,
honestly, they were tinkering more than I was. I was like
yeah,
coming to play and they're like making stuff and like, hey, we're gonna try this game set and whatever. And so I think I never had any problem with it. I just wasn't doing it. I think
yeah.
they were kind of doing it. Yeah.
Is there anything that was that you can remember that was like, well, you said you kind of like what I want to do with my life, what creative thing that I
Oh
want to
yeah.
do, was there something that was like, I mean, why Dream Chaser of all the things you could do? If you have that
Yeah.
feeling, you
It's
could start
I
making
got your answer.
modules.
I got your answer. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
RPG promise, right?
Mm,
I'm a vision person, I think. So I was just like, what sucks about role-playing games is that we tell people you get to do what you want. You get to be whoever you want, go where you want to go. Like you could
mm.
live vicariously through a character. And then because of the giant behemoth that's Dungeons and
But only
Dragons
if
and
you roll
Pathfinder,
high on a 20-sided die.
or if you don't mind being with this group of people who are already playing, and by the way, they're in a dungeon, we could really use a cleric. And clerics
Yeah.
are best if you're a dwarf, and you should be a dwarven cleric of this. And don't forget, you should probably carry this sort of, hammer. And a lot of times the adoption of a new player is like we're already playing, they join us, they join what we're doing, but
Mm,
you told them how cool role playing was, and they don't get any of that because that's not what's actually like dealt. That's not the hand they're dealt, right? They didn't
yeah.
get this like fresh like clay to build with, it wasn't Play-Doh yet. It was just like, okay, the Play-Doh was already, built for you. Like, here, play with your little piece. So Dream Chase was just that. It was like you get to tell the game master, right? Like, what is the story going to be? And if everyone agrees, then we make sure that we're all on the same page. Because if you were incited to play this D&D game with us because you wanted to be a wandering merchant, well, now we can start there, right? We can build a group of people around the idea of being that, or like where a wandering merchant fits that group. So it was just structured in a way that we can make sure that like people got what they wanted to get out of their experience too. Like if you play something that's like Born Identity or something, like maybe you want that ski chase escape, or you want to get blown out of the side of a building and like, be like parkouring down the side of a building like Jackie Chan or something. And sometimes like that from the get-go almost. Like I want to be this character to have a moment like that. So Dream Chaser lets you do that, like from the get-go. Like we will have at least that character with this in mind, and that experience will happen, you know?
Yeah.
What else will happen is for us to play and find out and
Yeah.
see how it works. I love too that the goal of the game can always be like what the story is about, not necessarily like we're going to achieve that. Because there's a lot of times where it's like, well, what if we don't write the New York Times bestseller or go to Gen Con or whatever it is, eat the best sandwich? It's not that we have to do the thing. It's a story about trying to do the thing,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. It's uh I there's so many other things that I want to ask you. So like I'll ask you what you want to talk about next. Like because you could kind of go through your career, right? About like, okay, so you did Dream Chaser and it was a game, and you did Rest in Pieces and it was a game, and then we've already talked
Mhm.
about Chew and it's a game, and
Yeah.
like, and you just finished a Kickstarter, and so like you're doing
Yeah.
games, but then
Yeah.
there's this other route that you took, which is something that like Wet Ink and Brandon and I with Wet Ink, like we didn't do this at all, but like you have taken on this other role too with IPR, and you're going to a lot of cons, like not with your own stuff, but repping other
Yeah.
people's stuff, and that's like a
Mhm.
whole other way that you've been involved in the industry, and so like I don't know
Yeah.
if you want to talk about, because I want to hear a little bit more about you, but like I
Yeah.
don't know if you want to talk about IPR because that's kind of like both happening at the same time, and kind of
Sure.
related in some ways.
Yeah.
The length of time that it took Chew to happen is part of the IPR story, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
So the
Like,
the big part of all this is like you did a great job by building a foundation, right? I came from like a game store rat, right? Like so I
yeah,
liked the game store, right? I believe in the game store. Unfortunately, what's happened today that sucks for game stores is that it's the internet. It's technology. It's not like it sucks. It just there's always winners and losers no matter what a thing is, right? So um we have social media now. When I was in the 80s and 90s, like predominantly the 90s, like because I was of teenage years, um, we didn't have the internet.
right.
Like you could call someone's house, be like, "Hey, so and so home?" But like I couldn't see pictures of people playing games or like see cool games or whatever. You had to like go places. So,
Yeah.
if you want to listen to music,
There
you
were
had
no
to go buy
actual
a
plays
CD
on
at the CD
television.
store. Yeah, like or MTV if it played your song. So you like the game store brought me in. It gave me community. Gave me role models. It gave me all kinds of different
Mm.
people and influences. Excuse me. Soda keeps making me burp on camera. But so that's a good foundation, right? So I saw it, I loved it, right? I had a good experience. And then I I was a business student. So like that's important too in this because obviously somebody who's not geared towards being a business student at all, like would not, could give like have interest to go this way. Um, but when I was with the Indie Game Developer Network, I could see it was natural for me to gravitate to like the convention scene because I was already kind of in the convention scene, but to like be like, hey, I'll work at the booths. I'll try to sell some stuff. I was like, hey, I'm going to make my own game and I'm going to need to learn how to do this. So if you can, pay me or give me more experience, like that's a good idea for me. And that would lead me to like run those booths and organize that stuff. And then I learned over time too, like you were saying, like when you're trying to sell things like, Wild Skies or something, you're just trying to like figure out like how I can even bring that up sometimes when you're
Yeah.
talking to a customer, like get them from D&D to, Wild Skies or Weave or something, obscure sometimes. Hopefully you get some pop culture stuff like they got Mutant Ninja Turtles on their shirt and you could be like, hey, anthropomorphic races, right? But um, so that let me really like cut my teeth and also kind of in some ways um, grow the IGDN's convention presence and learn how to like what sells and what doesn't. So this was really good for me and helped me kind of network within conventions and build those relationships and kind of see the like how the sausage is made. Like how do we
Yeah.
get these booths? How do we where do we stay? How do we get the stuff in and out? And let that become secondhand. You know all this all well now
Well,
too. Same route, but
right.
um
I mean, I can
yeah,
definitely confirm that like it is sort of
yeah,
uh, I took over from you, and then
hmm
Alex took over from me, and
yeah,
I know from talking to him too that like it's the same thing. It's like when you've got the responsibility to go to the con for the network,
yeah,
and then you're meeting people as like a representative of the network,
yeah,
or in your case now IPR, but then you're
yeah.
also like you're still meeting them as you, and you could be like kind of working on
Oh
both
yeah,
levels where you're
yeah,
like, hey, we met at this con. Yeah, I was repping this organization, but
yeah,
I contain multitudes, and I think you'd be great for this
yeah.
work that I have coming up for my publishing company. You
It's
know,
weird now, yeah, because IPR has a long running brand, right? So it is one of the things I actually like struggle with some right now is that is fighting like, oh, that's Pete with IPR, or like because they're like, or often not even Pete with that's IPR, right? And
yeah,
then being like, wait, this isn't IPR, and it's like, well, it's actually Imagining Games. We just also sell IPR products as an affiliate, right? Like
right.
we're representing them, and depending what shows are, like but yeah, if the brand can eclipse you, which is some of the things that's good and bad, but yeah, largely what happens here is that Jason Walters, who runs IPR. As you know, we used to coordinate like what products are going to Gen Con, Origins, like because IPR is very committed to like helping as many indie publishers and designers kind of get credit and get their books out in front of people. And so it helped me build a really good relationship with Jason over the years. So as you're saying, and I think you probably felt like me, leadership in convention coordinators, it's a elected position. So I had picked up a half term from the person, Matt before me. It's funny, it's weird. I didn't think about that till now that there's a Matt before and after me. And then I finished my terms and then you took over. And there is a level of, yeah, like I was ready to go do my own thing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that time there where it was mutually beneficial and it was always wonderful. But there are definitely parts that you're like, I now have a lot of skills and a lot of resources and the know-how that I've been lending a volunteer organization, which I love, but at the same point, I'm ready to like be like, okay, I did my part. There's new energy and new people who will take my place and they will
Yeah.
see what I did and build on it. And that's how this goes. Give that new energy a run, and then someone else will pick up there. And that's how you want an organization like that to go, is someone to come running it with new energy. And I was ready to like go sell my stuff.
Yeah.
Like go try to make money that I was kind of leaving sometimes on the table, because when you rep a group, you're not there being like chew, 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 rest in peace, rest in peace. You're like,
Oh, you
how are
might like
you?
this
What
other
are you
game that,
into? They
yeah.
walk towards something. You talk to them about it. You figure out what they like. You give them recommendations based on what they're looking at or what they're into. And then you're totally unbiased in that way. Like, and if it gets you to your thing, cool. But, um, yeah, but it was time to like, let's focus, because
Yeah.
you can be, you can overstay your welcome, I think is maybe the way to
Mm.
put it. And in both ways, right? Because it's not, there's a point at which it's no longer as good for you and what you represent and what you're putting out there, because you're just becoming a background part of that, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm taking that too deep, but
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you're going too deep, but like, yeah, it is
yeah,
kind of like, I mean, I have talked to nobody who's done the convention coordinator role, thinks it's an easy job to do for the IGDN. So
sure.
like, you do get it just from a point of view of like having that responsibility. You're like, I'm done. I want to go do something else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you found so
And
much success while you were there, but I think there's a point at which it will hold you back, that, I
mhm,
mean, because your own endeavors, because you're doing so much, there's a lot of the behind the scenes nobody sees. Like, it's the
yeah.
inventory, it's the ordering, it's the organizing things. And we used to, I don't remember how long it was going with you, but like we would fundraise internally. So there's just a lot of stuff going on. And then you're working with the
Yeah.
payouts, and then it's just a lot of stuff.
There's a
So,
lot of stuff. But like
yeah,
in some ways you didn't escape because now you just do all that with IPR. Like I'm sure there's still a lot of like
sure.
accounting
Yeah.
and stuff. Do
The
so
difference is, what is now is that I'm not like restricted. So I just tell IPR what I want,
mhm.
and they give me just exactly what I want, and then what I don't want, I send right back. Like, I'm sorry, like what I don't sell, I just send right back. So
Yeah.
it's like a really great deal. And it basically, I work like as a retailer. Like, so I'm picking and choosing things that I think will sell, or things that I think the market wants. And by market, I mean people. Like, I'm talking to
Yeah.
people all the time of like, there's some people right now who want like a game, they can play in 20 minutes, that they're while they're waiting for their food with their friend. Like, they're not drinking like they like my generation did. They're like, hey, you got something for that wait, while we're waiting for our entrees? And if I could give it to them, they'll play a role-playing game for 20 minutes, right? Like, so maybe stew pot, maybe they
If
play a little mini game out of it or something,
or
But that doesn't fit in your purse. But I try to meet them halfway, right? I'm trying to,
but if it's an 18 card game, it fits in your
yeah,
pocket, you can pull it out and yeah.
yeah. I mean, gosh, for the queen, right? I mean, like, almost hits it. It's just a little long for that, right? But
Well,
yeah.
I was thinking the score, which I think you've sold
Oh
at
yeah,
IPR. I was thinking the score
yeah. That's a
because
good one. That's a really good one.
it's
Yeah,
like 18 cards, like 1 minute per card. You lay them
yeah,
out, you tell a story, and things happen, and then it's over. You know,
yeah.
um,
Yeah, so I represent IPR specifically in a lot of places but like, even with them, like when I'm doing that, I have my stuff, the stuff that I've retailer backed as in other people's campaigns.
yeah,
I purchased from Exalted Funeral, I purchased from Studio Two, I purchased from Crown. So there's a bit of the being the having the experience, and again, all that networking. Now that I have these great relationships, where while I don't have a brick and mortar, I can kind of have carve out deals. So.
yeah.
And for me, it's like what I've just learned, that if I can curate the selection, I can help more people role play, and that, I think, is at the end of the day what I really want. Is more
Mm,
people to. Uh, it sounds weird, but I think it's true, right? Is they're like, everything is fighting for attention, because
sure.
there's only a finite amount of time, and we live in a world with internet and scrolling and social media and phones and text messages.
And billion-dollar
And
movies and
and as
all
you
of it.
know, like, marketing is hitting us in every which way, any which way it can, all the time, every day. And people's expectations on communication are all over the place. And depending on how you allow it to interfere with your life or, intermingle with your life, so many people are like, oh, if I got to take this, if it's a call from so and so, or if it's a text message, I have to answer immediately. It's not always like how it's designed that you can shelf this till certain times, depending on the urgency of the style of communication. So that's just a long way of saying is that like role-playing games are hard because they're a medium that I think is incredibly valuable because of what they allow us to do, like to internalize by like taking our soul out of our body and putting it in another place and living vicariously through
Yeah.
characters. And also the experiences we share with people are like having a raid in World of Warcraft or something, but like without like the limited number of options. And the theater of the mind can be so much more vivid, like a dream. You could literally live in a dream, where you could kind of build it out in all the ways you can imagine. And but the curve sucks, right? Like we're like, here, read this book. Here, like I need you to spend a few hours of your time and then schedule and you got to get people together. Like we have a lot of hurdles to get people past to actually get to that glorious experience, which is
Mm,
well worth it. But so we have to be finding ways to meet people halfway because like everything else is like, look what I can do for you right now. Look at me,
yeah.
instantaneous. Look, I got this right here.
Yeah.
And even card games and board games are like, you play right now, 5 minutes. You can play right now. Here, I'll put this in your hand. You're playing. You see, it's already
Right.
fun. You got it. Buy it. You can just put it down. And we're not good at that with role playing games.
No, I
But I
guess.
think the whole world is like instant gratification, and it is a failing though. It's like the teachers were right this whole time when they said, do the word problems. The
Yeah.
proofs are where it's at, the essay descriptions. We don't actually want to live in a multiple choice world because it kind of blows when you don't fit in the options that are there for you and when life is that predictable. And role-playing games are a thing that's beyond that, right? We are the proof for the essay. And
Yeah, yeah. I love
yeah,
that analogy. I
it's
love the
it's yeah.
short essay questions,
I,
taking those kind of tests
and I'm
back
with
in
you.
the
Like
day.
I don't know if I like them, but like we need that. That's
Yeah.
where like proactive thought like lives, and it's not reactionary. It's not the scroll. It's
Mm.
it's the like, hey, I
The
think I'm gonna make a
anti-scroll.
thing. It's the creative, right? So, and people aren't bored, Matt. I mean, that's the scariest thing in the world is that
Mm.
like that's the true war that's happening right now is people aren't bored. Like I don't know how many things have been created because you were sitting in a car and you were just like, I had nothing to do,
Right. And
or a
I mean,
bus because you're formative and you're a teenager or preteen, you're on a bus just staring out the window.
right.
But nobody's bored anymore.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I mean, uh, that's a whole philosophy
Yeah.
lesson there. I don't even know. I think the people who
That's
are,
the veil, Matt. That's the
well,
veil.
I mean, what it makes me think of is the people who, the people who are making the weirdest indie games that I know are all people who are bored with all of the stuff. They are bored. They're bored with the mass media, right? And so they don't
Yeah.
consume it. They're off making weird games instead, because that is more interesting to them, but
And
that
God
isn't
love them
obvious.
for it.
Well,
We do need
exactly.
all people. We need all
Ec-
kinds of people, but
Sure. Um, so this isn't exactly a smooth transition, but like,
I'm sorry,
because
Matt. Yeah.
no, no, I love it.
Tangents.
That's the clip I'm going to put in
Yeah.
that's going to be the preview clip is what you just
Yeah.
said because it was amazing.
Yeah.
But like,
We're
I
at war, Matt. We're at war.
well,
For minds. It's the Matrix.
sure.
Free
So,
your mind.
I mean, this is the side that you'd do a
Yeah.
Matrix game if you could, right? You would? Would
I,
you?
I would love to do a Matrix
Yeah.
game. Yeah. And I had a person before, and I always have somebody who's like, IP, do IP, IP, IP. Like, there's always somebody next to me who's always like, "Can we do this? Can we do that? Could we do this?" And yeah, there was a person for a long time who was like, "Where's the Matrix game?"
Yeah. I mean, you.
And
I,
Dream Chaser even has like some elements of what I was thinking when I was kind of building to that game. And,
mm,
because like there's a lot of things that go into building a game, a concept that, like it's the same idea as having like the first game not be the first game. It's like there was a lot of iterations of what Dream Chaser could have been before it became what it was, right?
yeah.
And there was levels of where it was much more traditional in some weird Matrix-like ways, So, which is weird to think about now because you can't even like parse the two ideas, like
I don't know. I'm gonna go
to
back and look at
yeah,
it with that in
yeah,
mind and see
no,
the fingerprints. Look, time keeps passing here, Pete, and like
sorry,
I no, no, it's wonderful.
yeah,
But like I don't. I don't want to miss out on some of the other things. So I'm going to ask you one more question about like cons and like I
Yeah,
loved your connection that you've said about like you're basically just a regular retailer except you don't have a brick and mortar store. You go to all these cons. So
yeah,
like what I want to ask about is like the feedback loop then because like most people who are that I know who are retailers, they're not also game designers. You know, they're
yeah,
doing the retail thing because they have the business mind like you were talking about and
yeah,
but they're not also like making games. Maybe some, but like anyway, but you are in that
yeah,
position where you're talking to people all the time and you hear what they want and you can, like you said, curate your catalog of like what is selling right
yeah.
now. And I know you've always shared everywhere that you're always talking about like, these games are what was hot. These are what was exciting. This is where the juice is in the industry right now. So make more of those so
Yeah,
that I can sell them next time.
yeah,
You've always put those kind of communications out and like every
yeah.
platform that I've shared with you. But like how has that been like then as a game designer? Is it like, do you feel the pressure? Because I feel like you're most led by like what you want to do, but do you have that voice where you're like, but I should make one of these because these are hot right now. I know they're hot because I sell a whole pile of them. Like I got to make one like that, that has either this theme or this
Sure.
mechanic or whatever.
Yeah.
Has it
That's
informed
very
your game
funny.
design that way?
It has not. Yeah. And it's very funny because like when you frame it that way, right? It just seems like, well, it must, right? It must. But I mean, there's been people telling me, gosh, right, for like 10 years now. Like, so why don't you think you should make something like D&D first? Like, why don't you make something like in the DM's Guild? Like maybe isn't more likely to succeed because there's more people, like especially in the early days, there's a lot of
Yeah,
that. And it was like, well, maybe, but that's like not what I want to do. That area
yeah.
of the market is surfaced. Like, and some
It's
of that business like background that I have is like I like want to innovate. I want to like make even like my commitment of like why I wanted to do RPGs like in my 30s, like what brought me here was just like I wanted to make it better than when I found it. And I mean, I'm still trying to do that to this day. Like it's
yeah.
just I and as you know, as we talk to so many people, especially with great groups like the Indie Game Developer Network, like imposter syndrome never goes away. It's like giving a
Mm,
speech. There every time you go to give a speech, there's still those nerves, whether or not it just at some point you're like, I've done this 100 times and I'm pretty good at it. Like at least that little voice in your head isn't you're still nervous, but that little voice in your head's like, but Pete, done it 100 times. You're okay. Um, so yeah, I always end up making the thing that I want to make. I mean, there are some choices. Like I've joked, but been serious of like when some element of Chew being forged in the dark was also because I was like hedging my bets a little bit. Um, I knew it could be it, right? And then I saw like wonderful crossover, but I just came from the school, probably like you initially, that like, man, everything could be its own game. Like that's like I start with the philosophy of like most things, like the compromise, right? Like we're saying, even with the RPG thing of like come to the table, you can be whoever you want to be, do whatever you want to do. The like the idea of being like, cool, so you give me Chew, I'm gonna fit it into Forge in the Dark, right? Like that's not even where I start, right? Like I'm not
yeah.
like let's use that tool. But there are things like I've told like Chris O'Neill, like I would love to do Hollow Knight and I want to do it in polymorph. Like there are things where I'm like I see combinations. I'm like that sounds fun. Like so I could come at it that route, but yeah, it just comes from all over the place. And it kind of depends. I learned with Rest in Pieces and on a lot of it is also like, what's the game screaming at me to do? Like
Mm,
when you after you make your first one, there's the game that like you keep looking over your shoulder and staring at. It's like the relationship, like where you want to be or something. So it's um you just start because the itch. That's how at least I work. I can feel it. Like I want to go design over there. I want to be playing with
mm.
that and stuff like Chew and Ghost in the Shell has been like it's different because it's like okay, do this now. And I'm okay with that, but it's different in the way that like there are other games I want to work on during these
Yeah,
periods that I'm not. And I'm
yeah,
just like, but prolonged periods of you're like, well, it is work and I'm being paid and I'm doing this and this is important. That's important. That can wait though, but years, Matt. I
yeah.
mean, that's the
I
hard part and you know it because you got a large line with lots of games, like it's
yeah.
just,
Each E1 game like this, we just
yeah,
launched Dragons, and like I
yeah,
believe we were pitched the idea of doing this by the author like a couple years ago, and we're like, yeah, sounds great, write it. and then like
Yeah.
it's taken him a long time to write it, and then it took a long time for there to be a gap in our schedule to do the crowdfunding, and like
Yeah.
it's a couple years, of work even to do something a modest sized game like
Yeah.
Precious Things that's on the crowdfunding right now. So like, which it wasn't supposed to be leading to that, but like Chew is very large. It's a large game,
Very, yeah.
and is it a game that I, from the outside, it feels like it's a project creep, a scope creep kind of issue
Oh.
with True. Like, did you start with it needing to be that big, or
The biggest creep was the underestimation of how many pages it would be with layout. That was the biggest creep. And there are some challenges that um, probably similar to you. We've had years of like selling games that were fate-based, right? Before Powered by the Apocalypse. And you would just meet like one out of three or four people who'd be like, I didn't get it. It would just be that easy. Like, I didn't get Fate. Like, it just didn't
Mhm.
understand it. Like, it just didn't click with me. I get that with Morkborg sometimes. People are like, like I read it, but it's like missing something. I don't know what this is. But if
Yeah,
you play it, then you play it and you go, oh, okay. Like, there's just sometimes elements of role-playing games we just don't click unless we play it first because they're just so outside of how we view, like, this game doesn't have initiative.
yeah,
What the hell do we do,
yeah.
guys? But it's like,
It,
oh, it doesn't have initiative because it doesn't care because the tenants are saying it's story driven. So
right.
the game master and the players are going to do what they want when they want because of the story. But then you could see a group of people who've never had any of these thoughts before. Like, I read it, but I don't. Does that mean? I think it does. Like they're
I
just looking at each other instead of doing it because it doesn't have initiative.
yeah.
So
I've definitely had conversations with people who don't get Powered by the Apocalypse. Like they're like,
yeah,
what do you mean? They're like you can't just attack someone. You can't
yeah,
like roll to attack, and
the
it's like
moves,
what the
yeah.
moves are.
Everything's got to filter through a move, right?
Right.
Yeah,
It
and
comes
it's
from a
just
move, and it's not an attack roll, but it's kind of is, but it kind
yeah.
of isn't. But like you
And you
just
could
it
they could fight you on semantics without until they play it. They're like,
right.
well, what if I want to do something like sled down a hill and there's no sled down the hill move? Like I promise you it'll work like
It's
90+% of the time. You
yeah,
might not even be able to think of a hiccup after you play it, but right now it sounds like some BS.
yeah.
But like it'll work. Um, so gosh, I lost it. We were
Oh
talking about it
yeah.
for a second. Oh,
We
but
you were talking about
I
like
knew that
the
Shu had to explain Forge in the Dark.
yeah.
And there were elements of that I was willing to go like to do it right. Like, and do it right isn't like necessarily concise, but make sure that you will read Chew and understand how to run the game. Like
hmm
you will read Chew and then be like, oh, that's how you forge in the dark. So that leads to things like there's a 30-page example of play that is, half illustrations, right? Like literally half the pages are illustrations. Um,
But
but at the
still, a
same point,
15-page example of play is pretty
yeah,
long.
that you read that is like it's a full game session, like a actual great story of actual players, with all the rules. And that's like in addition to actually very thorough rules that, have examples under every single concept throughout. So um there's just elements like that I was like, no, that has to happen. Like so and then, of course, but there are things like there are 40 factions, there are 40 locations from the comics, there are 150 ways to make 150 randomized food powers that you could roll, and then there's even a chart to make your own word terminology out of the comics. And
It's
there's 8 playbooks, which 8 is actually kind of a lot for most role-playing games. Like most are going to be like 6-ish. And then we actually expand with this supplement. So it's a really fully fleshed game. It's
it's
got
a
lots
lot of
of
stuff.
yeah,
It's a lot
it's
of
got
stuff.
investigation rules and a dry erase board with like rules on how you develop that and get players to do it. Yeah. But the big part was like, I mean, even the word count, it is a 200 some page book in a 460-page body. And that's because the art,
Hmm.
because it has more art than like any game ever that existed.
Right, because you were going to use all the art. Like you've got access to all of the art as part
And
of
we
the
and we didn't use
the.
anywhere near all the art. We
No,
have so much more
I
art
mean,
because
because
we could blow up a coffee cup from like one panel. It was like 1/20th of a page and make it like the page art, the spread art. So
yeah,
it
that
was wild.
that's a whole other.
Yeah.
That's wild. Like and
Yeah.
like you're not doing that necessarily.
Yeah.
You've got
That's why
like,
it took so long though, is
but you've got,
the
but still like,
yeah.
I mean, that's a whole other. There's too much to add to dig into like that kind of
Yeah.
like.
Mhm.
level of like layout process or whatever, but like that's got to be a lot of back and forth about like you looking at the pages and being like, what can we use from these
Yeah.
originals? And I guess you had access to the files from the creator, and so then you've got like, or at least a
Yeah.
version of them where you can blow up to that big if you wanted to, and then somebody's got to do that work and lay it out, and
Yeah. If you could imagine the most meticulous, arduous way of doing so, you're looking at what I did.
mm,
You
mm.
could imagine.
Well,
I have the whole series of comic trades with sticky notes all over the place.
yeah,
I have a stack. I have, a column that the width of like my body, right? Like probably like what, 3 feet wide, and each one of them is like this big because they have so many 100 sticky notes in 150 pages or more. It's just and that was just like, I mean, I won't bore you with it, but yeah, it was wild. And there was a whole
that's
cipher for how to request what I needed from what because we had to request them based on the page off the comic books, but they gave me the trades. And then the PDFs were off by a certain number. So there's a whole
mm,
cipher of like, if I want page 126 in volume two, that's actually, this comic issue in this comic book, which is this page number that's different. And then being like, and here's the hundreds of those that I needed over time. But
yeah,
but it was
goodness,
it, it's crazy. Yep.
yeah, but and this is
Federico
like
Sanz, shout out to Federico. Federico of Nibiru and Xanadu and did a lot of work for Modiphius with like Dishonored and all kinds of other games. Yeah, did all of the layout and graphic design,
yeah,
every little bit of it. Yeah.
amazing. Well, and the great thing is that it's like it's done, it's out. People can buy it,
Yeah.
and it's now awards season or getting
Yeah.
to be, and like it's eligible for. I don't know.
Yeah.
I assume you
Yeah.
submitted to the Ennies as well.
Yeah. It
But
won, right? It won an Emmy. So,
well, there you go.
yeah, but yeah, judges, right? The judges spotlight, the
Well,
golden
hey,
buzzer.
you know
Yeah.
what? You still got to get a medal.
I
So
got to
like,
go on stage and I knew ahead of time, right? So yeah. Yeah, the finalists for the Origins thing, but that's just that, I mean, that's something you and I can really like gush over is like it got both of the big noms, like and it doesn't have to win. It got both, it got recognized in
right,
both.
right.
So
Which is, I mean, it's so again. I think I said at the beginning, congratulations. But like,
thank you. Yeah.
it is to have gone through all the work that you went through and to
I'm
make such a big product
so
and then
lucky. Yeah.
for it to be recognized as well is like it's got to
Yeah.
feel good. Hopefully it does. Hopefully it
It,
does.
it does. It does. Yeah, especially because I know so many people who've done so much amazing work and it doesn't always get recognized.
Yeah.
And by doesn't always, I'm still doing it too much of a favor. Like it never gets recognized. So I'm just so fortunate. I'm just so fortunate.
Yeah. Well, I would like to spend a little bit of time. You mentioned a few minutes ago that like you've been working on stuff and you haven't had time to like scratch your own design itches and like
Yeah.
you did Chew and
Yeah.
then you did Teenage Ninja Fighting School, which is
Yeah.
Brennan Taylor's design,
Yeah.
and
Finally getting around to
and
publishing some people's stuff. It's
well,
nice.
yeah, and I know when we were both at
Uh,
Gamma, you were telling me about other projects that are like coming down the
yeah.
line. But like, so what are some stuff? What's next? Like, what is next for Imagining Games? What is next for
Sure.
your design
Yeah.
sense? Like, do you got anything that you've been working on or can't wait to get to, or I don't
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
do a little, do a commercial too. Like, what's next?
Okay. Well, you did miss something there, and it makes sense. I was the technical editor on designing TTRPGs
That's
for
right.
dummies.
That's right.
And that I just want to give it a shout out because like we have a For Dummies book and that just be like it tickles me in a little place where I'm just like that's so cool RPGs like we got it that's written by Martin Bunicki who is a college professor in English and also makes games under Gaming Honors. They do a lot of DCC work. But they have like a writing in RPGs course and they have gosh, there's a couple others, but there's the main core class was like a 200 level English class was writing RPGs. Um, yeah, so that's just so cool. What they do is so cool. I love that that exists. You can go buy it on Amazon right now. Um,
So
so
is that like by technical editor, you mean like it's, the person wrote
I
the
got to read it.
manuscript and then you were like, actually, Fate uses fudge. We call these fudge dice, not
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like is that the skill that you're applying there? What
Yeah,
work are you
it's
doing?
kind of like being the genre expert, right? Kind of thing.
Mm.
Like I read it for there was an editor who was the editor in chief who would be like, Pete, you can't, no, that's too much. You can't ask him to say all that. Um, are we, is the video okay?
I think so. It should be.
It looks like you. Okay, cool. So, yeah, they basically would I read it to be like, hey, actually, it's a little more like this. No, I don't think that's quite right. I think this game did it first, or like especially as games are mentioned or things are
Hmm.
brought up, or like how people go, or So there'd be times where a lot of it I was editing and being like, not so much like, hey, typo, or use this word. It would be like content related
Yeah, yeah,
commentary.
yeah.
So, and
Hmm.
then they would adjust. Yeah,
Well, that's got to
but I got to
scratch a
read it ahead
different
of time,
design itch
which is
for sure.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so okay. So there was designing TTRPGs for dummies. We were working at Teenage Ninja Fighting School, which is great. That kind of jumped the line because I've always wanted to do a zine quest. I would throw it out there to everyone else that what I felt like I learned is don't do the end of zine quest just to do zine quest.
Hmm.
Like catch the wave, make it on time, or don't do zine quest because I think that like that's where it lives, like the energy and the momentum are the beginning. So. Um, the next thing we have going is the roguelike RPG. This is a game made by Ares Marks, a kid I've known since he was 13 years old from
Wow.
walking into a game store. Um, and he made basically a throwback to me, I think of like 80s and early 90s RPGs that had like the one town and you go to the one dungeon. If you die, you return back to the same town and they have the same NPCs and you go buy it from the same shop. But it's got roguelike sensibilities in the way that like it's very gear-based and gear-based in like the best Gonzo sort of way that maybe you have like Shinigami eyes in a black notebook, and if you write in it, the two of them have a synergy where you do range damage by writing people's names in the book, just like Death Note or something. So you might start with a longsword, get a baseball bat, find Barbarian's Blood, which then lets you like do these combos over time, and then later get a minigun. And it's very fun and crazy. Some gear like a fake mustache, and you actually works as a disguise, but like in a dungeon. Like maybe you like disguise yourself as a monster because you have a fake mustache. So it leads to a lot of great role play, and it's very fun. And it's neat how much gear can define your character. Like who you
Yeah.
are is like the cool magic item that you have that
Yeah,
can
yeah.
change. That's coming to Kickstarter on the 21st. So that's coming up pretty quick. And then
Yeah.
I've been working on a sci-fi thriller with Esteban Colon since COVID. That was like our COVID game. It's called Memories of Tomorrow. Sometimes there's the from that I don't know with a lot of games. Tales of the Tape Deck. No, it's Tales from the Tape Deck. Memories of Tomorrow. It's a sci-fi thriller that is trying to find out really the vision of it. The game design vision is like I want to know what makes people tick. Um, I think there's a very cool crux if you play these characters that are have certain memories that they found were important to them, that made them who they are, and they have their stats are all kind of based on like how much they care about like their identity or like being altruistic or about truth overall. And you basically roll in a way that's like you're better at the things you care about. And the game kind of guides you to make choices eventually that I'm sure one of those memories is going to be something that's illogical for your statistics of your character. And but we want that to exist. And we kind
Hmm.
of put these characters in a pressure cooker of like them against saving the world at a race against time kind of situation so that these moments happen.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of kind of like not retrospective, but it's kind of insightful and heady. I think of like it gives me a lot of Mass Effect vibes and almost like it's
Hmm.
got some moments of like being back in the ship later and looking out in space and thinking if you made the right decision. Um, so that's been something we've been working on for a long time. But art was holding that back, like finding
Hmm.
the right artists and the right art and getting it, nailing it down. And like it, there's a lot of artists in there that
Yeah,
didn't pan out.
you could go in a lot of different directions too, like different styles and stuff.
In sci-fi, I don't know. I don't know a title for you guys yet, but I mean, sci-fi is one of those like black holes of like it's so easy to just be hand like swiped away, right? Like we've seen it all, done it all. Like sci-fi is really hard to break out in because it's just very quickly like, oh, that's Star Wars, oh, that's Star Trek. Oh, I already
Hmm.
seen that before. That's Mass Effect, So it's I felt like it's a real challenge to try to stand out when you, and especially if you have to make art in that way and you have to commission everything, right? That's it can be very costly.
Yeah.
So. So yeah, these are the games that are coming up.
I mean, those
The
all sound
recent
great, Pete. So
things.
like,
Thanks. Yeah. And they kind of like what I'm saying is that's really what drives me is that I find games that I think need to exist.
yeah.
And sometimes to my detriment because there are some of these games where even some that I've lined up that I know in the future, and I tell the guy I'm like, hey, this is a game I think needs to exist, and I'm gonna put money and make it happen, but like we got to be real realistic of like what the budget is and why because like I really don't see it making like it's niche within a niche, you know. So some of these
Right, right,
titles, that's a real challenge to it's one thing to get Chew and you or something like goes to the shell and you're like, okay, this is like throw everything at it because it could run away and maybe be like that, you know, millions of dollars pouring in, you know. And then there's plenty of games where you're like, at least in my case, where I'm like, no, I want this game to exist, even if there's only 500 people who want it. We got to
right.
find those 500 people and
You,
put it in
yeah,
front of
right.
them.
You,
Yeah, and I'm okay with that as long as you understand that we're on the same page of like that's what
yeah,
where this lives, you know.
yeah,
And it's going to give me a weird, interesting imagining games trajectory because it's going to be like up and down and weird and you know like off to the side because at the end of the day it's really about making the games that I think should be out there, right? I want
yeah,
people to um, have new experiences. So, a Teenage Ninja Fighting School, I mean, whether it's someone who brings it to me, this card game dynamic that Brendan came up with, and of course, if you talk to Brendan Taylor, this is just one of those games just dropped. Like it was like it came right out of him. You know, it's
yeah.
funny how some of them are really hard and some are real easy. And he's like, I don't know, man. Pete, this one just fell right out, and it's like just so good right away. And very quickly, just it's like the cards have prompts, like the numbers are allocated to your sheet, and you look at your sheet, and depending on your playbook, they do different things. And it's neat how it limits your options in combat. It's neat how it makes you role play so much in combat, which is the big part that I'm like, dude, you have a game that literally pushes people to role play in combat. Like that's the best because
Right. I mean,
that's the on-off switch sometimes for people, right? Like it's just
yeah. Well,
um
in some respects, I mean, it feels like I mean, I think this is part of the pitch too that you've made with it is that like
yeah.
those fights in like Dragon Ball Z or whatever,
Yes.
where it's like it's 7 episodes and they're talking.
Yeah.
They haven't even thrown a punch yet. They just
Yeah.
like gabbed at each other the whole time, and like
Yes.
mountains have fallen down to prove how strong they are or whatever just by looking at each other. And
Yeah.
it's like, but that's takes 7 episodes
Yeah.
because like it's all about those that
The
posturing and
internal
that like
monologue and
backstory
the
and their maternal
history and tying it
monologue. Yeah,
together and
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It makes so much sense as a concept because like the fight is the story in those style of shows, you know.
Yeah, honestly, you just said that. That should have been the tagline. The fight is the story.
Write it
That
down. You
needs
can
to
have it. You
that's
can
gotta
have
go,
it.
right? The fight is the story. Yeah, so I think that that's kind of where I live is that there is something about each game in particular that really, and like the roguelike, it's the gear. You know,
Mm,
the gear that like because I remember being a teenage kid at the game store playing D&D and like our game sessions were at some points in some games were just like we get the magic item so we could roll on the random table and then it's like I'm the guy with the flying carpet and I'm the guy who's got this potion or the magic deck or whatever and you throw out the
right.
cards and something pops up it takes me back there. And I
Mm,
think that clearly that's a place where a lot of people have either been nostalgic wise or have enjoyed playing if they've just like randomly played if like, what if you had like this magic item, the Vorpal sword that could slice through anything? Well, that really defines your character. So
yeah, right. You're the person who has the Vorpal sword.
yes, yeah,
Uh, there's a fantasy novel by one of my favorite authors called With a Single Spell, and it's about a wizard apprentice, and he learns one spell before his master dies. And so, like, then the whole story is like, well, I'm a wizard. I'm too old to be apprentice to anyone else, but I only know one spell. So it's like his sort of like failing upward. It's a story of like him keeps failing upward because he like only knows
yeah.
one spell. And it like yeah, but that's like his defining thing is like he's a wizard who only knows one spell. Um,
You kind of nailed. There's a game we have like conceptually that it's I one day I wanted to be like I could tell you it's that game, but it's not quite. But yeah, you start with one spell that you were like you are the master of one spell that like exists in the Arcana for like all these people. So the point is just what you said. Like, what if your spells float? Well, like you will be the person who has learned how to use float in every possible application there is,
yeah,
right? Like, and
yeah,
it'll be very cool to see how defined you are in character play. Of like, even when you fight floating. When do you fight and let your sword float over the opponent, punch them in the sternum, and then it floats back in your hand, and then you slice them? You know, like everything you do would just be catered in that spell. Which, of
yeah,
course, fireball or something would be like whatever, but like float is a good example of something that would just be so. You know, the book writes itself, like you were saying.
yeah.
You know, yeah.
Well, Pete, once you get around to writing the one spell RPG, where can people find about it? Where can people come? What shows you going to next? Where's your website?
Yeah.
What?
So imagininggames.com, it's got all the socials on it. I'm actually taking a break. We don't have anything till Gen Con. Um, I should be at Origins, but I always try to slam a family vacation immediately before after, and I'm a little tired. So I was like, let's just do it. And then of course they give us this nomination, and now I'm like, I gotta like send someone by proxy because we literally leave like the Thursday, the day before the awards, right? So but yeah, you can see me at Gen Con. And then we pick up for the fall. It's Grand Con and I go back to Salt Lake City for FanX and PAX Unplugged. I'm going to UConn this year. I haven't been to UConn in a while in Ann Arbor. I like that show a lot. A lot of great games. So
Yeah, you're not too far away. And then
yeah.
imaginegames.com. I'm sure imagining games on socials, right? You got a
Yeah, some variation of it, right? I think what Instagram might be imagining underscore games. But if you go to the website, you can just click it all at the bottom.
hey, there you go. Pete, thank you so much for talking to me today about like your history and your philosophy of games and like kind of the I don't know how you're trying to solve the crisis point that we find
I feel
ourselves
like I
in
learned something about
culture.
myself today,
And
Matt.
well, that's great. We both had that it was worth it for both of us, I guess. Uh, yeah, again, thank you so much, and we'll see you around these internets. Thank
Yeah,
you,
it's been a
everyone
pleasure.
who,
This is great.
yeah, thank you, everyone who watched this video, listened to our conversation. Tell Pete what your local con is, and maybe he'll come with his big train of IPR stuff to your local show because Pete loves to all go to all the shows.
Oh.
Uh, Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next one.